CHGO Bears After Dark, brought to you by ComEd.com/clean, our fantastic sponsor. Make sure you are powered and get all your energy needs with ComEd.com/clean. Come on in. Hi, everybody. I'm Joey Christopolous, filling in for Greg Braggs. He's still in London. He's fallen in love. He's never coming back. I'm kidding. He'll be back next week. We got Adam Rank coming up in just about 10 or 15 minutes, so stick around for that. But until then, let's bring in former Bears defensive end Corey Wootton. Corey, I'm having fun with this season. How are you doing?
Man, I'm having a lot of fun right now because offensively they're starting to hit their rhythm, their stride. The play calling has been great. And the most important thing, the best part about this is our number one overall pick is getting more and more comfortable every week. The progressions, the reads, the throws, man, it's a thing of beauty. And I know people are going to say, well, these are some teams that haven't been winning and, look how they've been this season. They get paid too. They're an NFL team. But what I love the most is just the confidence that I see in Caleb. He looks a lot different than week 1 or week 2 at this point. So it's great to see. It seems like him and Shane Waldron are on the same page as well as the rest of the offense. So it's a thing of beauty. And to go out to London after all the traveling and jet lag and to come out the way they did and have such a dominant performance on a Jacksonville teams that back was against the wall, especially they had a big win the week before. They really hadn't lived up to the hype that people thought. You kind of thought they were going to come out ready to go, and the Bears beat the brakes off them in that one.
Corey, our team, my team, Chicago Bears fans. Chicago Bears said to Chicago Bears fans this weekend, do I make you horny, baby? And the question is, I'm feeling randy right now. I'm feeling pretty randy, taking down the Jacksonville Jaguars 35-16. Everybody hop in the comments, smash the like button, comment, question below. Join the chat right now. Yeah, Corey, man, you brought up Caleb Williams. We're going to dive into a bunch of juicy stuff with Adam Rank when he joins in just about 10 minutes or so. So I'm going to try and keep some in the chamber here. But I want to bring up the one that's the obvious one, right? I think a lot of people are making that narrative case, right, of, well, it's just the Carolina Panthers. Well, it's just the Jacksonville Jaguars. In a couple weeks, it's also going to be, well, it's just the Washington Commanders defense. I want you to expound upon that a little bit because two things. One, they're showing something really special here. And what they're showing is that I think there's been Bears teams and iterations of the past where when you play down to the competition, that's something that you really have to kind of pay attention to. That's not what the Chicago Bears are doing right now. They're taking charge. They're dominating these teams right now. And this feels a lot of like when I read comments all in the offseason. I mean, Bears fans, what did we predominantly say as phrases, right? We want to win football games. We want to go to the playoffs. So far, that mission continues by playing this type of football. And Corey, when we talk about the schedule, one last thing is that I felt like that was a narrative. Was it not that we heard from Matt Nagy's teams? We would always do, well, they kind of played down to their competition a little bit this week. They got the W, but you know what? It wasn't this convincing feeling. And that's not the case with the Bears right now. I feel like that's really encouraging, and that's what has me so optimistic right now. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it's awesome to see just because the way they started this season, Joey, to be honest with you, I wasn't really sure how offensively they would come along. And I know it was early on, but just the play calling, it didn't seem any rhythm. They weren't getting the running game going. And I thought, you have a young quarterback. You're trying to take the pressure off him. Why not get the running game going? And what have we seen the past 3 weeks? We saw Swift be the X factor. He's over 5 yards a pop in this game in Jacksonville, and it makes everything that much easier. It keeps your defense honest. It keeps them on their toes. And you see some of the creativity that we're seeing from Shane Waldron, where that wide receiver reverse flip back pass to Cole Kmet for the touchdown. It's fun to see because, Waldron, when I saw him in Seattle and I saw the year he had with Russell Wilson before he left, I saw what he did for Geno Smith. I'm like, there's no doubt about it, what he can do for a talented guy like Caleb Williams. And early on, he's trying to get his feet in there with a struggling offensive line. And just the play calling was not creative. He wasn't getting that run game going. It didn't make things easier. And now what we're seeing is because of that limited offseason, you see a lot of these offenses really struggle early on. Last year we saw Patrick Mahomes really struggle. We saw Josh Allen struggle. And usually teams start to hit their groove weeks 5 through 7. And that's what we're starting to see from the Bears. And I think it has everybody excited because the quarterback position has been the only position in Chicago Bears history that people haven't really been sold on, right? We never had that stud. We never had that superstar that you're like, he's going to make every throw that you want to see. He's going to go through progressions, and just seeing how confident Caleb looks, right? When he's looking off defenders, going to the other side, going through his different reads and checks. It is fun to watch. And the fact that he is super slippery when it comes down to the scrambling. And I don't think people give him enough credit for what he's been able to do as a scrambler. He's keeping these defenses off balance. And the thing is, they're not keeping a spy guy for him because he'll carve you up. So it's opening up things when he needs to run, which is awesome to see. So there's so much what he can do, and I think he hasn't even scratched the surface of what he can do in the league. He's getting better every week, which is awesome to see. And the Bears defense is playing lights out. So when you have a great defense, you got a quarterback that's feeling confident, the play callers finally starting to get together. It's been fun to watch these Bears these past 2 weeks.
Yeah, Corey, I want to give credit to Adam Hogue, CHGO Sports and CHGO Bears. Adam Hogue, a guy who walks around with a capital J on his chest, yesterday in the postgame, when he said that I think we spent a lot of time in Chicago. It's kind of like ordering a loaded mac and cheese or something like that, or ordering a beer and a shot, where we like to just bang on the offensive coordinator. But sometimes it's important to give credit where credit's due. So I'm with you, man. I think I've liked what I've seen. What do you think the major difference? I'm going to give you kind of a split ski question here. The first one is, what do you think you've seen? Is it him finally matching up to his personnel, learning these guys a little bit and starting to fit their skill set and tendencies into what he wants to accomplish? And can you also address who were the ad wizards that told him not to have a first 15? What? I mean, if that's true, Corey, I mean, what is that? I'm glad the evolution. I'm glad we're at the station here. Orange Cassidy says in the chat here, Waldron had no script for the first 3 weeks. What is that about? And what was the come to Jesus moment that you think's happened with Waldron the last 3 weeks that has us crediting him on these shows now?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was listening to too much new age rap because you know how Drake has a ghostwriter. He didn't want a ghostwriter or something to call the play. I don't know what it was, but I've never heard anything like that in my life. To not have a first 15 script. I've never heard of any coordinator in this modern era, probably for the past 20 to 30 years, not have a script of their first 15. So that is very surprising. So I think that could be one thing. And obviously getting familiar with your personnel, because you look on paper. I've said this from before the season even started. The Bears have one of the best wide receiver trios on paper in the league. They have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, that are established veteran studs. And then you bring in Rome Odunze as well. And then you got Cole Kmet, you got Gerald Everett. You have Swift, you have Roshan Johnson, Herbert, who they haven't even used. But on paper, you're like, this offense should really go. But obviously there was offensive line issues. And then early on, the first couple of weeks, what were they not doing? They were not running the football in between the tackles. And then what we've seen as the offenses got better, they've been running the ball in between the tackles. And Swift has done such a great job of opening up things for Caleb, because there's a common correlation between how effectively you're running the football and then your ability to work the play action, to open up things, the rhythm and timing throws. It goes all hand in hand. And when you can't run the football, defenses can pin their ears back. They can get after you. And what we saw, especially in that Houston game, right, when you cannot run the football, those talented pass rushers got after Caleb. And, I mean, he's running for his life. So I think Waldron, got to the drawing board and is like, listen, I need a first 15 script, right? I need to script for success early on, get things going. And what you saw in this game, the first 2 drives, the Bears punted, and after that, they didn't. So they finally got things going. They were rocking and rolling. But the run game is the X factor, because it takes the pressure off the offensive line. I always said that it's a war of attrition. Sometimes early on, it doesn't always work the way you want to. But throughout the game, you wear down the opposing defensive lines. You get things going. The hurry-up tempo, it keeps them off balance. And that's what Shane Waldron has done in the past couple of weeks. And it's been night and day. It's so fun to watch this offense. And I don't care that Jacksonville had one win. This other team had one win. This defense is not good. They get paid too, Joey. And you have to go out there and play because on any given Sunday, anyone can beat anybody. And this NFL this season, I think it's been so unpredictable across the board. The first couple of weeks I was in a survivor pool. I had four teams. I was out by week 2. That's how crazy this season has been. I think nobody who is supposed to win games wins games. So it's hard to win in this league, especially early on in the season when teams are figuring out their identity, figuring out the direction of their ball team. But I think the Bears to be 4-2 at this point going into the bye, I think it's a great situation, especially how they started.
Yeah, 2 things. One, I get the comments when you see the 1-5. It was 1-4 at the time, and they take down Jacksonville. Keep in mind that Vegas flipped that line. Okay, so Bears walked into that game a day before 1.5-point favorites. They walked into that game 1.5-point underdogs. So, okay, you can't necessarily tell me that Jacksonville Jaguars are this trash team. I mean, they dropped 4 or 5 touchdowns yesterday, and they had a bunch of defensive penalties in the second half that definitely aided towards the Chicago Bears pulling away from this game. But again, at the same time, they were favored, and then they were underdogs in that game too as well. So I'm not really necessarily buying that card. And if we want to continue to talk about spreads, you rarely see a double-digit spread anymore in the NFL. It's almost extinct, Corey. I mean, you'll see them maybe pushed up to 7.5, 8, maybe 8.5. They don't go double digits anymore. So anytime you can beat a team by multiple touchdowns, I think it's a huge win, and the Chicago Bears, again, for the second week in a row, not only take care of business, but do it in an emphatic way. We're going to take a quick break here on CHGO Bears After Dark with former Bears defensive end Corey Wootton. We got Adam Rank coming up in just a moment. But first, we got to talk about our presenting sponsor. We got to talk about ComEd.com/clean. Sean, it's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles, and that's something we can all get behind, for the health of the planet and for the well-being of all of us who share it.
Yes, that's true, Joey. The electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we move forward with confidence towards an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense. Hopefully they can teach me how to read.
Yeah, so what should business owners do?
Well, they should go to ComEd.com/clean to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, do not wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. It's good for business. It's good for the planet. It's good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
Did you say ComEd.com/clean?
Yes, I did, and please don't make me read more, but there is more. Go now and see how electric connects us to the better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come. ComEd.com/clean.
We almost did that as a harmony.
We should have.
Thank you so much, Sean Anderson. We're coming back here in CHGO Bears After Dark with former Bears defensive end Corey Wootton. Hop in the chat. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, because we are bringing it right now.
Look at those
NFL
glasses.
Hold on.
He's cooking tonight.
First of all, class is in session because NFL Networks and the Sick Podcast, Adam Rank, and resident guest here at After Dark is going to tell us a little something about how he sniffed it from a mile away, the Keenan Allen breakout game. And he is here today to tell the tale. He has wisdom. We are just here to absorb his knowledge. Adam, can you hear us? Welcome to After Dark.
I can hear you. How am I coming through right now?
Yeah, you sound great. You're ready to rock.
Sound good.
All right. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I am. I'm sitting here like a scientist. Once it's kind of like the Homer Simpson effect. Like once Homer Simpson put on the glasses, you knew he was about to say something profound and something noteworthy. And I think, I'm sitting here trying to figure out the game plan of the haters, because they're in shambles today because it's been very difficult for them. I think what they've latched onto is the fact that the Bears beat 2 bad teams, and that is their solace right now. Like, they beat the Panthers and they beat the Jags, so none of this really counts. And there's guys in this league who beat up on poor teams all the time that people seem to not put as much scrutiny into, and that's fine. My whole point of this is that if the Bears were out there, and let's say that we beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 15-13, and we had to scramble, and Cairo Santos is kicking 5 field goals, 1 in the last second, and we're trying to be like, well, Caleb did some nice things here, and like, no. He's out there throwing for 4 touchdowns, should have been 5, if DJ Moore had been able to get an extra foot. And how are you finding fault with that? Like, yes, it's a poor team that he destroyed doing what you're supposed to do. And I was listening to something that Matt Hasselbeck was talking about on the Colin Cowherd show, and he was alluding to this, and he's like, it's going to get difficult at some point. But I do agree with that. Like, yeah, they're going to play some tough teams, and there's going to be some stretches where the football's not going to be as clean, where he's not going to be able to throw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. I'm fine with that. I think that what we're saying as fans and former players and all that stuff is that it looks like we have the guy and we should be excited about it. I'm not saying we're going to win the Super Bowl this season, but we have got the guy. I think that's indisputable.
Yeah, it's so fun to see because what I see from him is just confidence. He eludes confidence out there. And especially early on, the first 2 drives weren't exactly how they drew it up. But after that, they got things going. And he just seems like he has that swagger back there. We didn't see that the first couple weeks. He's got the swagger on there. He's having fun. And that's what football is about. People overcomplicate it sometimes. But when you're out there having fun, right? You're playing loose. You're going to have your best football. And I think that's what Shane Waldron has now gotten out of this offense. And it all started with Swift. They got the running game going because you look at the first couple of weeks, the common denominator was offense didn't play well. The running game didn't get going at all. And then all of a sudden, this 3-game winning streak, you look at the rushing stats going over 100 each game. What does it do? It opens up things. It softens up the defense. It allows the play action. And what we're seeing now is Waldron being comfortable with the weapons over there and knowing his personnel. Because early on in the season, and I know everybody wants to jump to conclusions, even myself, I'm like, man, it's panic mode at this point. But the limited offseason, it's tough for everybody to get on the same page. And, what we're seeing is usually teams hit their groove weeks 5 through 8. That's when you see everything come together, even some of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. But it's just awesome. It's what I thought Shane Waldron could do with this personnel, and that's what we're seeing right there. And like you said, Caleb could have had 5 touchdowns in the game against Jacksonville that I thought, hey, they were going to come ready to play. They had a big win the week before. Doug Peterson's job is pretty much on the line. I know they're not really saying that, but you got to think with the start that he's had, they were going to play some inspired football, especially being out there 2 weeks. If they could sneak, win this week against the Bears and then next week as well. But it's fun to see when you have a quarterback that can go through progressions, that can lick off the defense, throw lasers out there. And then what I was mentioning early on was just his ability to scramble. I don't think people give him enough credit for what he can do because he's not the type that you have to keep a spy guy on because he'll shred you up because he has such a great arm. But the thing is, he can beat you with your feet as well, what he's doing, how he eludes pressure and sacks. And it's fun to watch because I think this team early on, the offense, the way that they looked and the way they look now, they're just all having fun together. And to finally get Keenan Allen involved and have him have a big game, Cole Kmet, because I think those are going to be 2 X factors. Obviously, DJ Moore is a productive receiver that can have big games all the time. But Keenan Allen is that savvy vet that'll go across the middle when you need him. And you saw that 2 times Caleb hitting him. And then Cole Kmet as well. I mean, he's definitely going to make Kyle Brandt's angry runs. That run was pretty impressive right there to get in the end zone. But Cole Kmet is the X factor. And early on, they were giving Gerald Everett more touches than him. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense right now. Guy that you paid that is a stud, And in my opinion, I think Cole Kmet is exactly like Kyle Rudolph in his prime. That's exactly what I pay. Really good blocking, really good in the red zone, and I think he's going to be huge for Caleb going forward because every quarterback loves that security blanket as a tight end.
Yeah, and Adam, if I could add really quick.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, no. So I just wanted to add really quickly. I thought you were bringing up a great point when we're talking to Bears fans, and I was just I'm also doing these thought exercises of like what's different beyond statistics and beyond maybe just eye tests. And there's 3 things that actually really stood out. The first one is after Caleb throws the interception, he goes 17 for 21, and they have 4 touchdown drives. The other one was when Jacksonville scored and cut it to 21-10. And for me, for Bears fans, this is the slippery slope.
Yeah.
Are they going to somehow get back into the game? And I think the resiliency and the way that they responded in that drive was impressive. Now, granted, a couple defensive holding penalties later, DeAndre Swift had 54 yards on that drive, and they popped a touchdown, and they made it 28-10. And then, Adam, to Corey's point, I think the other one is cool is that he's spreading the ball around, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
each person is taking a turn. This week it was Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet. It's been DJ Moore in the past. Roma Dunze a couple weeks ago. And I think that's what's so impressive is everyone's getting a turn and everyone's getting a piece of the pie.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, and to the point of like the DJ Moore situation, he was there. He would have had his touchdown, and then it wouldn't have been that big a deal. And I don't think he's pouting about it or anything like that. He knew he had the opportunity. But the one thing about Keenan Allen is when they brought him in, and I always kind of felt when they were talking about the race to 1,000 yards, I always thought that was kind of weird. Not weird, but I'm like, I didn't foresee that role for Keenan Allen. I always saw him as kind of a third down, pick up the sticks guy. 3rd and 8, he's going to get you 9. When you get near the goal line, he's going to be able to get those anticipatory passes. The two that we saw on Sunday, and the one that we tried to see in week 1, I think it was against Tennessee, where that would have been Caleb's first touchdown of his career. Keenan uncharacteristically dropped it. Obviously, he was battling through an injury and all that stuff, and all is forgiven. Like, who cares? We're here now. We're 4-2. I think that that's going to be his role, and I think that that's what we're going to see out of him. We're going to see Cole Kmet going out there and doing his thing. One of the things that impressed me the most was obviously we've seen a little bit more of the scrambling ability of Caleb Williams, and now he's been a little bit more confident in just tucking it and running. The slide is terrible, but we don't care. You got down. Nobody got hurt. I would also say, too, the one where he was scrambling out, that he stops and throws it across his body to Cole Kmet that he ended up taking down to the 10-yard line. That was one where you're like, you know what? This is some of the college stuff that he was able to do. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do it against every opponent. And I'm like, I would really caution him to not go to that well too much. But in that situation, it was perfect. He saw it. He saw what he was looking for. And he made the throw. And so doing stuff like that. And I thought, and again, I'm looking at this, and I as much as we've been talking about Caleb, and everybody's like, what about the defense? How much are we gonna, talk about the defense and all that stuff? At some point, and Corey, you talked about this a little bit, giving credit to the coaching staff and Shane Waldron being able to kind of swallow his ego a little bit, letting the Bears leadership council come to him and say, this is what we would be comfortable doing. This is what we need to do. These are the players we need to get involved, and him doing it. We keep waiting for the shoe to drop. We keep waiting for now they're reverting back to it not being, like them going and not looking like they know what they're doing. They seem like they've got a plan and they're trying to execute it. Sometimes you miss a throw. Sometimes you miss this or that. Like, okay, that's fair. That's football. There's 11 guys out there trying to stop you. That's okay. Yeah, but now they seem like they know what they're doing. We're starting to establish an identity, which was a huge thing. It's one of the things that we missed out of the Matt Nagy era, was never being able to establish a true identity for this team. And now we got it. And that's the thing that's impressive. And I think Matt Eberflus also needs credit for this as well. We've all had questions about him. We speculated. He was he was in that conversation of like, who's going to be the first coach fired? Like, people were talking about that. And I'm not saying that he's earned the lifetime keys to the city, but he's won 3 consecutive games. Last year, he won 6 out of 7. At some point, we got to give him a little bit of credit, like a little bit. Like, we don't have to listen. He's not George Hallis yet. He's not Dicka or anything like that. Not even Lovie Smith. But he's doing a great job, and he needs to be recognized for that, because I've been really impressed in a game that could have easily been a trap game against a team that knows what they're doing when they go to London. They pushed all the right buttons, and it seems like everything's working right now.
Yeah, hats off to Eberflus the past couple of weeks, because made adjustments, especially Shane Waldron as well. And you hit the nail on the head. A lot of times in this league, coaches have such an ego that they don't want to listen to anybody, right? I'm going to run my offense. That's what we saw Luke Getsy do. That's what we saw Matt Nagy did. And coaches usually don't deviate from what they do, right? They stick to their guns and that's it. But no, Waldron was like, listen, maybe I got to look in the mirror, right? Maybe he cued his Michael Jackson man in the mirror, and he looked at himself and he said, you know what? I'm doing this team a disservice. And what he's done the past 3 weeks has been awesome to see, because this is what we thought the offense could be, the creativity, right? Getting the weapons involved, getting your quarterback, putting him in a position to succeed, getting the run game going. That's on paper, you're like, that's all you have to do. But sometimes it's not as easy as that, right? When coaches are like, no, here's my plays that I did with Russell, and here's my plays I did with Geno. No, nobody is the same. You have to mold an offense for what you have, what the personnel you have. And I thought he's done a great job these past couple of weeks. And Eberflus as well, right? Continue to get that defense playing well. And listen, hey, if the offense continues to play well, they don't have to light it up. He doesn't have to throw for 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 400 yards. If he could just be efficient and take care of the football with this type of defense, I think they can make a playoff run, right? It is early in the season, but if they play this style of football throughout the season, especially defensively, right? They run the football and he takes care of the football. They're going to put themselves in a position to make a run this year if they can continue to do that, right? Now that's, after a bye week, how are they going to come back against Washington and some of these other teams throughout the rest of the season? Because if you remember, right, Jordan Love, right, started out as hot as can be and then all of a sudden fizzled a little bit and then heated up towards the end of the season. Not to say Caleb's going to do that, but there's ebbs and flows of the season. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be great, right? But I think the great part about having a great defense is to take pressure off the offense.
No, for sure. And it's funny too, when you think about a game like they had against Indianapolis, if that game was played coming up this week, I think the Bears win by 3 touchdowns. I really do. I think they would blow that team out where they are right now. Even going back and thinking about the Houston game, as bad as that was, and it wasn't great, they still had a chance to win the game at the very end. And the Caleb Williams that we've seen over the last 3 weeks, I'll even go back to the LA game because I think that he played well in that LA game. Nobody was going to give him credit for that. That's fair. I think if you had this Caleb Williams in that game against Houston, I feel a lot more confident about that potential winning drive than what we saw. So it's interesting to me. I know somebody was asking, what do we think about the division and everything like that? I don't want to get too far ahead of it, but I also don't want to be afraid of it either. And I know like it's not going to be easy. It's the best division in football, but it's like I've now got the confidence that when things go wrong, they'll be able to rally against each other. And there's going to be a point where they're going to need to respond to adversity, and that's probably the next biggest test. But for right now, we don't need, that's fine. Like, I don't need to worry about that right now. I'm just worrying about what we're seeing. But as you said, Corey, allowing that touchdown or allowing the points and everything and being like, oh, like, is this where it happens? Is this where it unravels? Those moments haven't happened yet. So I'm not even going to sit here and worry about that until we see it.
Yeah, keep those comments coming. A lot of people are asking about the NFC North. I'm right there with you, Adam. Tut. Maybe a little bit. Tut, my sweet. We'll get there one at a time. And what I find is least interesting, and I think what's so optimistic, is other than the 3-game winning streak, and you're right, Adam, like we've got that road stretch coming up in just about, I think, a little bit over a month, is that I just think we're starting to get some sort of version of baseline of expectation, where I'm starting to feel really confident on a consistent week-to-week basis on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, and from Caleb Williams, a little bit of what we're going to see from this Chicago Bears team, where you brought up another great point that Matt Nagy, I honestly, I wouldn't know which team would show up on a week-to-week basis. It was either Santa's sleigh or they were getting trucked by the Saints. It was kind of one of the two, right? So before we roll it forward to the schedule, I do want to also mention that we've talked a little bit about putting aside egos and guys stepping up and using a little bit of Ryan Poles' depth. So Adam, if you want to go first and just weigh in, we got to shout out our guy, CHGO's Cole Kmet, the 85 podcast. Subscribe now. Not only does he truck one guy on that fantastic design, he picks up another touchdown, but then on the subsequent snaps, he is now the long snapper between Doug Kramer at fullback, Cole Kmet snapping the ball. I mean, there's a little bit of, I don't know if I want to say like that movie magic a little bit, but the guys are stepping up, and you can see the other teammates get delight out of them taking on uncommon roles. And there's a little juju there that I think also can be really great, especially throughout the course of a long season and a tougher schedule coming up.
There's a little fear from long snappers around the NFL being like, oh, can we save a roster spot by just having somebody who played quarterback in high school? Because that's really what it comes down to. Because I could long snap, but it comes out because I played baseball. It's the guys who can, if you can throw a ball with consistency, you can play long. I don't want to take away from long snappers. It's not that simple. They're elite level athletes. Like I'm sorry. If you are a guy who's playing intramural football right now for Lambda Chi, I'm not saying you can walk out and be the long snapper for the Chicago Bears. I'm not saying that. But like all these guys who like you have to think like everybody who played like Corey, were you the high school quarterback?
No, it wasn't the high school quarterback. I
You
have
could have
Mike
been though,
Teal
right?
from Rutgers.
Okay, see, you were okay. Yeah, you have somebody who played. Okay, that makes sense. But like most guys, like you would just be like, oh, like I remember talking to Eric Davis one time when we were colleagues at the NFL Network. I'm like, you were the quarterback, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, of course you were. Like, it just you can tell, like, there's a thing. But when you see these guys, and you sometimes forget, how gifted all these athletes are who play professional football. Of like how good they were in high school and college and all that stuff. And a lot of people can do a lot of different things. So it's fun to see Cole Kmet go out there and do there and see Kramer in the backfield. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and be like, hey, remember back in the 80s, we had a defensive. No. We're not going to do that. But I do think it goes back to what the culture of the team is starting to look like and what it's starting to come together and really be something that's not, again, an identity for this team. One of the things that makes the Lions so good and what makes people root for them and what makes them seem fun is that everybody's focusing in on Dan Campbell's culture. Like there's an identity there and people can kind of identify with it. It's why people pull for them. And, they haven't won for a long time as well, but still, like there's something about that. And now the Bears are starting to pick up a little. It's interesting because the Bears are about a year behind Detroit. And we're starting to see things like that where people are celebrating Cole Kmet and what he's able to do. Hey, big man in the backfield. Like people who don't necessarily follow or like the Chicago Bears are brought into this thing. And it shows the culture of this team, like the tea party at the touchdown for the touchdown celebration. Like all those little things just goes to show that these guys enjoy being around each other. They enjoy having a good time, and it really permeates not only in the play on the field, but as a fan watching it. I love watching it because I feel like these guys love playing football together.
It all goes hand in hand. The best performing teams, usually they have good chemistry, good camaraderie. They have a coach that they love and believe in and want to run through a brick wall. I do think everyone loves Matt Eberflus. I think early on, obviously, when you're not playing well, I think people as pros and you want to be as perfect as you can. You want to win games. There's frustration. But obviously, when you're winning and you're getting on the same page, everything comes together, and that's what we're seeing these last couple of weeks. So it's fun to see, and I hope they continue that, especially after the bye week. I always get nervous about games after a bye week just because you're not in your routine. I always felt like we didn't play as well after a bye as we did, especially if we were in a groove of the season.
Yeah, we're here on CHGO Bears After Dark with NFL Networks and the Sick Podcast. Adam Rank and also former Bears defensive end Corey Wootton. I think definitely there's a lot of different kernels here of things coming together from a chemistry standpoint on the Chicago Bears. So I think it's time. We're seeing it a lot in the comments right now. There's already conversations going back and forth between Jaden versus Caleb. I love it. That's super healthy. Keep those comments coming. Let us know how you feel about that one. The one that I'll start off with, I don't even know if we need to do a game preview because I know we're probably going to do that when Braggs comes back next week, next Monday before that because they got the bye week coming up. But, Adam, I'm just kind of like taken aback where I'm hoping that this game gets flexed. I think that would be really cool. And I'm trying to remember, man, when was the last time the Chicago Bears even had like the hint of a possibility of a quarterback duel? When have we dueled? When was our last duel? And could this be our first duel in a long time when it comes to Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams?
I mean, it goes back to Cutler, and I think that I'm the only person. I'm one of the few, I think, who actually still holds Cutler or held Cutler into high esteem. That I felt like he was much watched television. But when you look at it from the lens of the NFL, as much as I like Jay Cutler and I think he's a good quarterback, I don't think nationally there was as much interest as we might have had. Like he wasn't Steve Young or Troy Aikman or Dan Marino or anybody. How old am I? Jeez Louise. Or anybody like that. But but you know what I'm saying? Like, This is a player that people who don't necessarily like the Bears want to go see. Part of it is that he played for two major programs. So I have alumni of Oklahoma and USC who come up to me at drop off and stuff like and pick up, and they want to talk about Caleb Williams. I live in Southern California where we watch Bears games every Sunday. We have picked up a couple of fans who are SC people who just want to come in and watch Caleb and watch him develop. And I think that for the NFL, you should want to focus in on this. I know that the brand names of the Cowboys and the 49ers mean a lot. However, it's Brock Purdy, who I like, don't get it twisted, and Dak Prescott. It's not Caleb versus Jaden Daniels. And you got to cash it on Jaden Daniels while he's still good. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. I would love to see it though. I love being a part of it. Like, yeah, we're now the team. I think the best example of this is like the NBA of the 90s of like Jordan always had to be on TV. Jordan's playing on Thanksgiving. They're doing that, like they're the game of the week.
Bulls,
and the Bears are going to get to that
morning,
point.
yeah.
It's here shortly. But yeah, if I was the NFL, like, what are we doing? What are we messing around with? Like, go make this switch immediately.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that matchup. But the one thing is, I just hope people don't jump to conclusions after one game, right? If Jaden Daniels outplays Caleb, we picked the wrong. I don't want none of that because Bears fans, they jump to conclusions all the time. I think both are going to be great pros. It's good to see what we have in Caleb. I think he's the real deal. I think he can make every throw. There's going to be ups and downs, so I just hope people don't hold too much weight from one game. At the end of the day, it is one game. It's not the whole season. So I think people are judging what happens in this game off who we should have picked. You know how it goes.
No, I know.
That's what they always do.
Guys.
And I think that, I can't even make that. I'm trying to soften the comparison because it's always Hall of Famers where you're like, and I don't even want to like between Brady and Manning, or if you had Marino or Jim Kelly or Elway or, whoever one of its Marino. Yeah, I guess that would be another one. Like, it's okay to like your guy and still acknowledge that there's other good quarterbacks in the NFL. Look at the 90s where you had Aikman, Steve Young, and Brett Favre. And if Joe Montana had stayed in the NFC, it would have been fun as well. Like, Drew Brees was a good quarterback in the NFL. It was fun. Like, it's fine. Like, I think that what Jaden Daniels does is exciting. And I think he's a good player. And it's fun to watch him play ball. I loved him going back to his time of like growing up out here in Southern California. I remember when he went to ASU. Great receiving, a great recruiting coup by Antonio Pierce, who's now in trouble for it, but still enjoy the way he plays. And I think that the Commander fans should be excited about him, and they have every reason to be. But I have no buyer's remorse whatsoever with Caleb Williams. I think it's fine. Like, there was kids who grew up who loved Star Wars, and there was kids who loved Star Trek. I was a Star Wars kid, and I've never regretted that decision in my life. And I think that we're never going to regret getting Caleb Williams because I don't think there's going to be a need to. So it'll be fun though. It'll be a fun conversation. But I'm not gonna root against Jaden Daniels. I'm not going to worry about anything that he's doing. I'm just going to enjoy my guy and what he's able to do.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels, he is such a slender build that he's so mobile that I worry about like his longevity in this league. I think he just has to be smart about getting down, getting out of bounds, not taking these hits. Because when you look at him, he is a skinny dude. Like, he does not have a lot of muscle mass. He doesn't have a big lower body. He doesn't look like he could take a lot of those hits. So I just worry about, longevity wise, how is he going to hold up if he gets hit?
Yeah, and going to the point of Bobby Nash here, if the Bears end up like getting 4 interceptions, that's not going to stop me from proclaiming this over. I'm going to overreact as much as possible. And I'm just kidding. But yeah, that'll be the interesting part too, is like, even going up against Baltimore this week, Baltimore is not the defense that they used to be. And the weakness of the Ravens is in the pass secondary. You can't run on them, but you can certainly throw on them. So the Bears defense, and I think it comes down to the one thing that I know you've been talking about coming off a bye week is I think the defense doesn't want to hear it. Like, the defense knows, and they want to not protect Caleb, but they're like, okay, like, let's see what this rookie can do. And if we get everybody back healthy, I know we're probably not going to hear an update about Kyler Gordon, But if we can get most of our guys back, then I would feel very, very good about that.
Yeah, the key to that game against Jaden Daniels is number one, sticking in your rush lanes, and then when he has those RPOs, right, knowing your assignment, make sure he doesn't get to the edge on you, because I think that's where he hurts teams, is that confusion aspect, and you don't know who you have after motions. So just being disciplined, knowing exactly who you have, and just keeping him contained, because if you can keep him in the pocket, I think they could have great success against him.
Yeah, Corey, I wanted to follow up on that just really quick because, when you look at the box score, 68 rushing yards on 20 carries, 3.4 a pop against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a pretty great job. Can you give us a health check on gap assignment? I mean, we've seen obviously Chuba Hubbard break one, Jonathan Taylor. It's been a little bit of a talking point, a little bit of a concern, but just talk about what you saw from the defensive line and obviously the depth on the back end because they lost guys to injury. Talk a little defense for us.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago when we were in the studio, I was talking to AB and Lance. We were talking about the gap discipline, and a lot of the times it was from the defensive line, because in this attacking style defense, you're supposed to penetrate, and your penetration sets the gap or sets the edge. And early on, what we saw is you can't do this. You can't play peekaboo like you are with your newborn child, right? You try to see where you are, you try to go over here, and you're not decisive. So what Lance was talking about, he's like, anytime when you were in there and you play peekaboo, I couldn't fit off you, right? If you penetrate, I'll make you right. And I think that's what you're seeing with TJ Edwards and some of those guys in the linebacking core, is when the defensive line is decisive and they get in their gap and they penetrate, they can fit off them. And that's why we're seeing a lot better rush defense earlier than the peekaboo. That's one of the benefits to the Tampa 2 attacking style, is you don't have necessarily a gap, as weird as that sounds, right? Because the penetration sets the edge. So it goes against everything that you've ever been taught in football. You're like, I have this B gap and I have to stay in this B gap. So that's a lot of times early on when people aren't trusted it. They're like, hey, he's reaching me. I need to go to this gap. And what do? You step this way. No, when you penetrate, and if you get penetration, what you're going to do, the running back is now going to have to cut back. He's going to have to alter his, and then the defense is going to rally. So I think that's the thing of beauty, and that's what we've been seeing the past couple of weeks. And then what does that allow? For more of the pass rush, because then teams, have to air it out. You can pin your ears back, and that's what we're seeing. So this Bears defense is playing really well. I was just thinking, I'm like, you think Poles could make some addition of maybe a talented pass rusher? You think maybe we can get a guy like maybe Myles Garrett or Hendrickson or something like that?
I was kind of rooting against Cincinnati last night for that same reason. I'm like, when is Hendrickson going to become available, or even Myles Garrett? And I know that Ryan loves to. One of the reasons he didn't get Matthew Judon was because he couldn't sign a long-term deal. But I don't know, like if it's Myles Garrett, I'm like, maybe we figure it out. Maybe.
Or Hendrickson. Like Henderson, I feel like he does not get enough credit for how good he is. Like he is one of the most under the radar pass rushers. You turn on every tape and he's getting pressures and sacks and disruptive. I mean, I don't know, maybe because he's not one of those guys that ran a 4.4 and coming around it, but he is a technician with his hands. He plays with great leverage. He is, in my opinion, I think he's definitely like a top 5 pass rusher that doesn't get the credit that he deserves.
Yeah, Adam, if I could ask really quick, we're getting some comments here right now about people asking, who they want, which defensive end. When you talk about Trey Hendrickson, you talk about Myles Garrett. I threw out there Max Crosby, different players, but I feel like we're all kind of in the same ballpark of tier. In your opinion, clearly the Carolina pick, and what do you think the sweetener would look like? What do you think a package would even theoretically look like in a structure? Because we got to take money on the way back.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think could work into our advantage, is trying to take, in our position, we haven't seen it a lot in the NFL as we've seen in other sports, is like agreeing to take on bad contracts. Because the Bears, I think one of their greatest strengths is not necessarily the draft picks or anything like that, but if you can get somebody out of a player, and I'm not talking about Deshaun Watson, like that's ridiculous. But like if you can find ways to like help get people out of a salary cap situation, I think it works better for us. And you think about the compensation last year for Montez Sweat, which was a second-round pick, I'm happy to do it. And I think that Carolina's pick is the one that everybody's going to want. And it'll be the thing that, it'll be the thing that everybody talks about with like, well, you essentially gave up a first-round pick because I got it, but whatever. if you're competent at what you do, it doesn't matter really where you're drafting in those first 3 rounds. You should be drafting quality football players. I do think that helping these teams out of contracts of players that they've already extended or put money into where you're like, they're not going to be competitive for the next couple of years. Let's get them out of there. I know there's a couple of guys on Jacksonville who are pending free agents. I was actually looking at the offensive side of the football. Like, do they upgrade at the guard position? Do they look at a tackle? Like, is it really worth it to go after the defense, or are we confident that the offense is turning it around now to where, like, we don't really need to make a deal? Like, Darnell Wright was one of the highest rated Bears according to Pro Football Focus. I was watching some of the plays and watching Braxton Jones get out there and really get busy on some people. I'm like, okay, like maybe like, are we okay here? Is this the thing? Like, and then I think about the defense and I'm like, if we can get to quarterbacks and really put the pressure, I'm like, is this the default that we want to do? Is this, if we're making a move, is it better to go defense? And I think it is. And I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. Obviously, I'm biased because I play defensive line. But when you look at the Tom Brady killers, the New York Giants, they single-handedly beat him by the defensive line, right? Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck, O.C. Minora, and then back in 11 too when they had JPP and all those guys, O.C. again, Justin Tuck. It is such an advantage when you have such a great pass rush front, because that rushing cover makes everything that much easier. The takeaways. So yes, it would be nice to have a true lockdown left tackle. Yeah, I'm all for that. But I think going forward, if the Bears are going to be a dominant franchise and they're going to be every year competing for a Super Bowl in the future, I think they're going to have solid lines, especially defensive line, and they're going to have a solid left tackle and some really good guards as well. So hopefully they can build that through the next couple drafts, because I think that's the difference maker. It's hard for any quarterback, even the most talented, the GOAT Tom Brady, when the opposing pass rush is breathing down your neck, you know. He still probably looks at Strahan and them. He gets nervous, you know.
I think so.
Got one more topic here for you guys before we get out here in CHGO Bears After Dark. Gentlemen, if I may, I'm going to go off the board. I want to ask you guys a life question, okay? I just got back from a wedding in Pittsburgh. Football city, football frenzy. Went to a wedding on Saturday, which just so happened to maybe possibly coincide when Penn State at USC was playing, and maybe also when Oregon and Ohio State was playing. So my question for you is it wedding faux pas that I definitely watched football at that wedding, during that wedding, maybe also possibly on the dance floor with a minute 50 left? How far removed from the family do you have to be where it's okay? Or did I just get lucky that I did it in Pittsburgh and no one gave me a hard time? I just need to kind of get a ruling on this. I don't know if I'm going to try and pull it off again. I'm not saying the father of the bride gets to watch football, but where do you guys land on that? Have you ever watched football at a wedding before, and did I do something not cool or very cool?
I would say that it's accepted. If you're going to have a fall wedding, you're pretty much inviting everybody to go watch football. Like, that's just the way that it's going to do. Similarly, like if you have a March wedding, like what are you doing? A March wedding? Like, yeah, people are going to be excusing themselves to go watch college basketball. Like, that's just the way that it's going to go. I feel like some of the best weddings that you have are people that go in, they check out games, and they do that kind of thing. And, you know, it's the time of the season. You know, it's got to be expected. And you know what? If you're that couple that doesn't like sports and you're oblivious to it, I might not even check yes. Like, is this something that I have to go to? Am I supposed to be there? Because I can always play the I'm working card. Like, I got to work. I got to watch these games. I know it's tougher for us with the college football, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, I got to work, you know. But at the same time, like, I've now got like so much youth soccer going on and things like that. It's like I can't remember the last time I sat down and watched 4 quarters of a college football game.
Yeah, I feel like at the ceremony, you know, that's something that, you know.
The
I did do it in the
ceremony,
church.
that's
Stop it.
extreme.
I did do it in the church. Come on.
But at the reception, oh, it's hands up. We was watching that Oregon Ohio State game for sure. And the thing is, my cousin got married this weekend. What I wish is that they had, you know, obviously you go to the reception afterwards, there's a dance floor and the whole bit, but there needs to be TVs around the corners. You know, there got to be different games up there. You know, you silence the games, but you got to be able to watch it while that's going on. You know, obviously we got the cell phones to do it, but who really wants to watch a game on a little iPhone, right? We need the big screens over there. So I think that might have to be, especially if the wedding is during a major sports season, you got to have that reception. Yes, it can be muted, but it's got to be up there.
I was literally dancing to Soulja Boy like this on the dance floor. As Jeremiah Smith is pushing off.
The phone on the dance floor is a little much, though. I gotta throw the challenge flag. That's a little.
Please, I want to be
personal foul, Joey.
That's not Joey. You gotta walk off and go excuse yourself and then disappear. Pull the Irish goodbye and just be like, all right, like we'll see you later. Especially if they should have a TV by the bar and you're just sitting there holding court. Position yourself to where you can see the game. Like that's kind of the pro move.
Yeah, and then a crowd forms, right? And then you have a really cool sports moment tied to the wedding a little bit, and maybe then a shot. See, I'm glad we sourced this out a little bit because I felt like I did go too far. I think I probably did in areas, but then there were other areas where maybe I think we're kind of like working this out as a life hack that we can incorporate these things into bigger moments.
Don't upstage the bride by having the phone out on the dance floor. That's all you got to do. Just be discreet about it. Like just walk away and then just kind of, you know what the score is. You know what time it is. Out of the jacket. No, get off the floor. Although when you saw Greg Olson's photos at Christian McCaffrey's wedding, you're like, there is a lot of shenanigans that go on anyway. So who knows? People might not even remember.
That's G-Reg to you.
G-Reg, yeah.
7th floor crew, baby.
That whole thing of like when people are like, somebody tweeted this out like a couple months ago, like who's your favorite rapper of all time? And somebody said G-Reg. It's like you can never get away from that. I know, and I feel bad for like some of the stuff. Like I think of some of the stuff that I said when I was in college, and I'm like, oh man, if that was something that would still be, if you could find my early stand-up from the 90s, like it would be I don't know. I don't know if it was G-Reg level, but like it was saucy.
Corey, do you have a rap album that we don't know about?
I think someone just sent me the link to that. Some of that. I think somebody's.
No,
I'm just
like I've never heard this before. What, sir? Yeah.
No. they make camera phones back then, man.
Right.
Shoot, they barely made them when I was in college back in 2005. I mean, we had like a razor, and that thing you could not see anything off that. You'd be like, "Who is that?" That's the cameras have come a long way since then.
That's going to do it here on CHGO Bears After Dark, presented by ComEd.com/clean. I want to thank our guests and our resident guests. I'm subbing in. These guys are here every single week. You got to tune into them. It's former Bears defensive end Corey Wootton and the Sick Podcast, Adam Rank, also from the NFL Network too as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm Joey Christopolous. Gentlemen, if you have any parting words for the returning Greg Braggs, let him know that you miss him or whatever you want. But that's going to do it for the show.
Oh, you're
Braggs,
not Greg?
I didn't miss you. Forget you, Brett.
Oh, this makes sense now. Okay, I get it now. I was wondering why I didn't hear at least one comment about bricklaying. Oh, now it all makes sense.
We miss you dearly, Braggs. You'll be back. He'll be back next week right here on the After Dark. CHGO Bears After Dark. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
We all silly like the mayor.